Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shills, desolates, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome, and let's go to the Mid East again. And the story that came out in the Military Times, of all places, they did an investigation. So this is very credible because it comes from the military themselves as of February 2017. And they said that a lot of airstrikes have not been documented. So all these numbers that we've been throwing around, and I've been throwing around in videos documenting the number of airstrikes and bombings by coalition forces, so-called coalition forces in the United States around the Middle East are completely inaccurate, as it turns out. In Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan, thousands of strikes are unreported. In 2016, 456 airstrikes were not reported in Afghanistan, half of all airstrikes. So the fact that the numbers are 50% off or more is really incredible. Helicopter and drone strikes. So apparently the information is incomplete because the different agencies like the Army or the Marines or the Air Force or the Navy don't necessarily cross-reference all their reports, and also they have a problem factoring drone strikes and helicopter attacks. And so they've focused on jet airstrikes. And the data has been incomplete going all the way back to 2001. So for 16 years, the numbers we've gotten on airstrikes across the Middle East and Afghanistan are incorrect. And one of the problems, of course, is that this affects also the documentation of casualty rates and casualty claims, as well as the overall costs. So in other words, if these numbers are off by this much, then we can take all the casualty figures and double them, and we can take all the costs that have been documented and double them. And as a good friend of mine, Jeff Dowdy, and I have talked about many times, you have to take these factors in that all the government numbers we get are wrong, and that you need to at least double them, if not more. And we find that to be true in this case as well. And they had some interesting figures in these articles too. Each Hellfire missile costs $100,000, and each ground-to-air missile costs $28,000, and all this other ordnance. So if they're miscounting 500 airstrikes, then it starts adding up to some real money that is not being documented. And then also they have a problem too when they call something a single airstrike, and they're using missiles, air-to-ground missiles, all kinds of ordnance and bombs, and then that's considered a single airstrike. So that's another way that the numbers become distorted, particularly using Apache airstrikes in Syria and Iraq. And the fact that they talk in this article too about Apache helicopter attacks and strikes by U.S. forces in Syria and Iraq also reveals the fact that we do have ground forces in combat using Apache aircraft. And you can say that that's not technically boots on the ground, I guess, because they're in helicopters, but that shows that we have active combat operations going on involving U.S. troops in Syria and Iraq, but that's another story. So in Iraq and Syria, in 2014 alone, 6,000 airstrikes were not included. So these are huge numbers. If 6,000 airstrikes were not included over the last 15, 16 years, then it's an amazing amount. 23,740 coalition airstrikes through 2016, according to figures. But if half are not being included, then we're talking about 50,000 coalition airstrikes. And also, those numbers focus in on Iraq, Syria, and Afghanistan, and doesn't include U.S. airstrikes and bombings in Africa through AFRICOM. So once again, the number of bombs and how much it costs and how many casualties is not being accurately documented anywhere, because this affects these distortions affect U.S. combat operation numbers coming in from around the globe. So once again, we never really know. We can't count on it. The only thing that we know consistently is that any numbers that we get from the government about anything are complete bullshit. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too?